heard me mention this. I'm terrible at public speaking. Well, I didn't have to do a lot of it. Speaking with us today, we have about ODOT's Transportation Asset Management Decision Support Tool, TAM-DST, is Garrison Gowell. Garrison is a graduate of The Ohio State University with a degree in Geographic Information Sciences, or GIS for short. Before starting at ODOT, Garrison spent 4 years working for a small engineering firm in Columbus. There he specialized in asset and pavement data collection, analysis, and management for cities and counties across the United States. Garrison began working at ODOT in July of 2018. He currently acts as the product owner for TAM-DST, as well as helping the GIS and roadway inventory teams within the Office of Technical Services. Garrison?
Thank you. So today I'm going to talk to you about TAM-DST. So what is TAM-DST? So TAM-DST stands for the Transportation Asset Management Decision Support Tool. So as you can probably tell from this tool is meant to help people make better decisions and more efficient decisions regarding our transportation assets. So where did TAM-DST come from? So when someone wanted to plan a project or prepare for a project, doing that it took time. You had to pull different data sets. You'd have to pull project data for pavement. You'd have to pull data for your culverts, your bridges, your roadway inventory, and also traffic data. And this could take hours to coordinate, put together, and then analyze this data at the same time. So what came about of this was, how can we leverage what we have now, our data and our infrastructure, to speed up and simplify this process for people? And so how can we also add business intelligence and analytics to support our Transportation Asset Management Plan, or TAM for short? So how is it that we can utilize all this asset data along with pavement, roadway, information, and traffic data at the same time and efficiently? Well, the best way to do that is to use them all in one data set instead of trying to combine different bits over and over. Then how can you make it better to visualize this data and make it easier to consume this data? And then at the same time, how can we better manage our infrastructure with it? Now, in the state, we have over $116 billion worth of transportation assets. Obviously, that's quite a large number that, one, for me, not easy to wrap my head around how large it is. So I did some digging and found something that was equivalent. So if you were to look at the Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo space programs that we did back in the 60s, that number comes out to be, in today's dollars, just underneath of $116 billion. So that's how much it took us to get to the moon. We could basically, if we could sell all of our assets, we could do it again. So what we did, TAM-DST was created to solve these problems, and we did this by providing a way to combine and analyze and visualize all this data at the same time. Now we're talking about somewhere in the length of 1 billion rows and records worth of data that we're going to try to use here. So what we did, we used the Transportation Information Mapping System, which is TIMS, and readily available, to use and combine and house all those data sets. So we pulled all the data from there, and we're able to bring it into the tool from that situation. So what's the purpose of this tool? We wanted to provide a way so that you can consume and analyze different types of roadway data at the same time, while also being efficient in your way to analyze that data, and then make better decisions with the data. So the way this is done is we overlay these different types of linear data on top of each other. So if you think about it, you have pavement data that will go from one milepost to another milepost for the route. You'll have traffic data that will go from intersection to intersection. You have the roadway inventory data that goes from every point to where the attribute changes. So how this is done through a process called dynamic segmentation. So if you were to say you have 1 mile of a roadway that goes from 0 to 1, and you have a PCR score of, let's just say, 80 across that whole segment. So you have 1 line. Now, let's say you want to add some roadway inventory data onto that. And let's say at 0.7 miles on that route, something changes. It becomes, let's say, before that it was a divided highway, at 0.7 it becomes an undivided highway. Now that 1 mile segment you have, now is split into 2 different segments of 0 to 0.7 and then 0.7 to 1. So that's how we visualize this data and how we're able to combine and analyze it at the same time. And the intended audience for this is we want to make this agency-wide. We want planners and engineers to be able to use this data, put this up on a touch screen, use the tool, and then sit around and say, okay, let's see where we have a spot of data that doesn't look good, the pavement doesn't look well, and let's go explore that and see what we can do and figure out what's going on there. So TAMDST functions based off using Microsoft Power BI, which is an analytics tool. This allows you to create reports, display, and visualize this data in a dynamic way, and handle large amounts of it as well. Within the software, you can build different logics in order to better display or filter different things from the data to make a better visualization for yourself and how you want to analyze the tool. And then another key feature of the software is it allows you to drill through on a record of data. This allows you to take a deeper dive into that segment of roadway if you want to see more information regarding what you're looking at. So what we do is we use known routes within the state, and we use these to locate where primary assets are. In this case right now, our primary assets that we use are pavement, bridge, and culverts. So within that, you can find any of the state system routes and routes that we keep track of, and then you can find that information about the pavement as well as the location of those culverts and bridges along those routes as well. Another part of this, we want to know how many assets exist within a set of mileage on a route. So let's say we're driving on Interstate 70 here in Franklin County. How many bridges are we going over in a mile? How many culverts are on that route? So what data do we associate with these? Pavement, the big ones, the PCR, the structural deduct numbers, and different distress scores, as well as keeping track of the project history and also the pavement web data that we keep track of. Roadway information, what's the functional class? Is it a divided highway? How wide is the road? What kind of surface is on the road? What's the priority system for it? And then traffic, your annual average daily traffic, your AADT number, your ESAL number, how many cars, how many vehicles are moving through the roadway at any given time throughout the year. And then, as I said, assets, the main ones we focus on right now, bridges, culverts, and pavement. And then also, we want to look at the maintenance and the operations that have been done with those assets as well. So instead of me standing up here and just giving you screenshots, I figured the best way to do it is let's do and actually look at the application, do a couple of use cases, and see how it's functioning. So when you load it up, the first screen you get is a login screen, which if you work for ODOT, if you're on ODOT's network, this is your credentials itself will automatically allow you to log in. So we come to our home screen here. And the home screen is very simple. It's a very simple process to get going. So we have 4 different options to choose from at first. The first thing we want to do when we open this tool is we want to check our preferences. So what preferences allows you to do is say, hey, I want to look at all the different asset types, all the different types of reports, and show all of it to me. Or let's say you just work with bridges. You don't need to see the pavement and culverts. That's going to remove those assets as a possible choice from you, and also change the reports that you can see because of it. And the same thing goes with the reports. Say you only need to see the inventory, and you need to know what the numbers are. Then you can turn off everything else and only get that selection of the. So I'll go ahead and turn these back on, and we'll move to the next part of this, the second part. So we want to set filters. Now, as I said, we have over 1 billion rows of data within this tool, and 1 billion is a large number to process. Filters allows it to process a lot quicker. So with filters, you can define yourself. So let's say we're in District 6 right now, so we'll go ahead and set District 6. Now this will all change dynamically as you select things. So we've selected District 6. It's now filtered to only the counties in District 6 that are selectable. So we'll select Franklin County. And now we'll have just a list of routes that are within Franklin County here. So what we can do as well is, it's already set, but we say the state system. And let's look at the interstates, the state routes, and the US routes within Franklin County. So now it's filtered itself down to only show those interstate routes, state routes, and US routes within the tool. So now that you have a filter set, you can take a deeper dive into some information. So we'll go to the condition map. So what the condition map does is this gives you a map of the area you've selected to look at, and then once it loads here, you'll see it'll visualize and display the locations of all these different assets within the county. So, as you can see here, we have points, squares, and these line assets all representing these different 3 assets on this side right here. So if we wanted to, there's a couple different tools within this map itself. So you can zoom to your just selection, and that'll put you right back in the high level showing you all of your area. Or you can do an identify. So let's find out, we have Interstate 70. Let's find out all the assets that are on Interstate 70 in this section here to the west of downtown. So what we can do is we can click, draw a circle around the area, and that'll bring up this asset inspector on the right side. What this does is it gives you a high-level view of all the assets in the area you just circled. So in this case, we have bridges, and you can see that there's 4 bridges that we found in this area. And if we wanted to, we can cycle through each different bridge, or let's look at a different asset. So now we can look at the different segments of pavement that are set here. And within this asset inspector box, it tells us more information about each one of those little segments, just high level, you know. What's the asset name? What type is the asset? What's its score right now? You know, is it a PCR score, a GA score? And then also just information about the route. What route did we sort of select? So that's the condition map. So what this is really good, and kind of really the idea behind this is to put this on that touch screen. Everyone sits down in a room, and then let's take a look at it and see where's our, our good areas and where's our bad areas. And let's focus on making sure we plan to do projects in those areas to bring that PCR and those other condition scores up to a good quality. So I'm going to show you a couple of the reports now. The first one here is the asset valuation. So once this loads here, the purpose of this report is to give you just kind of a high-level view of how many assets you have in your area. So in this case, Franklin County, we're looking here. We have, somewhere around 1,000 bridges, about 1,500 culverts, and we're looking at 545 miles worth of pavement within the county that we're taking care of. So now that we have kind of an idea of what the number of assets are that we have, what are some more information, more deep dives that we can do with this? So let's go ahead and we'll take a look at our inventory summary here. So what the inventory summary is, it just gives you another high-level view, a little more detail about what these assets are. So in this case, it breaks it down into, we're looking at how many bridges are within a rural versus an urban area. What are the costs associated in that? And one thing that's interesting with this is that you can do these drill-throughs. So if we want to look at pavement here, we'll go ahead and these are all interactive things that you can do. All of these things can be selected, highlighted, and we'll do what's called a drill-through. So we'll explore the inventory detail on our pavement here. So if we look at this, we can see that we have all these segments on different routes, all within this district and county, and it gives us our begin and end points of each of these segments. Now some of these segments might be small, some of them might be large. It all just depends on what attributes are being added, what's being changed, and how the road's been segmented. So with that, it also gives us other information, our functional class, priority system, the year it was recorded, the number of lanes, the jurisdiction, and that's how we were able to combine all this information together. So let's say we had a segment of the road here, and we wanted to see a little bit more about and go into the details of it. And this is where we would do this. These reports do, when you drill through into other forms of these reports. So the drill through we did drilled us down into the inventory detail here. So if we go to condition, condition is really a pavement focused area of the report. And what it does is it allows you to see the different conditions of all these rapidly and also within a chart as well. So in this case, we can see that we have culverts, bridges, and pavement again. And it also gives us this bar graph here of what these different assets are and what the quality is. So if we wanted to, let's take a look at the pavement, and let's just select the poor pavement. So now we have selected the poor. This chart below highlights just that. And so now we're saying that within Franklin County in our pavement, we have 17 miles that we would consider poor quality. So if we wanted to, what we could do is we could drill through onto this. Let's go into the condition detail of it. So now as we look at it, we see more information about this. If we want to, we can go ahead and we'll select poor again. And this will filter the chart below here to only show the pavement segments with a score that we would consider poor in this case. So in this case, we're sitting here looking at it, and we see You know, we got 59, 62. So these are all areas that we could potentially identify as potentially having a project done on that to bring that PCR score back up to a good quality.
On this report, you have rated year.
Yes.
On the previous screen, it said asset year. Are those the same thing, or is the asset year like when it was put in or approved?
The rated year would go with when the PCR was rated.
Uh-huh.
The asset year would just go with when the data was brought into what that year was. Yep. So another thought about what we might want to do is, what are all the situations of we have, you know, poor pavement, we have different assets that are not meeting proper scores. How can we find a list of all those or find all those locations? So what we can use is we can use the poor condition list here. This allows us to use these sliders at the top to set what this range is. You know, do we want to see all the pavement that's, you know, below 70, below 65? What are all the culverts that are below 4 in their GA? So let's go ahead, we'll go ahead and slide these down a little. And then as this updates, we'll see that this list will change to reflect those numbers. So all the scores over here have changed now. Anything that's below 4 or less is going to show up for that. And if we want to, we can filter this on the fly by turning off assets as well. So as once this reloads, you'll see that this will only show pavement segments now that are below 60 that we have found. So in this case, we have a list of them that are all at 59 and below. So now you have a list of all these different segments and assets that are what we would say is, you know, potential for work or starting to become deficient. So it helps to have that list, but usually you're probably going to want to see where that is on the map. So what we can do is we can use this view exported data on map. We hit OK. This will create a new page and create a map of all the locations of where these situations are where we have some sort of deficiency. So in this case, there's a segment of pavement right here that's is below 60, and also some segments around in this area. Well, it's always useful to see that on the map, but maybe you want to see more information with that. Well, this tool allows you to export the data straight to TIMS. You can put this data right into TIMS, and then also bring up more information. So in this case, maybe there's potentially projects that have already been planned over the next 4 years that are going to be there. So TIMS, we can bring up projects, and we'll bring up the next 4 fiscal years worth of projects here. So you can see this segment right here that was underneath at the 60, if we look at it, has some sort of project that's going to be going on. If we zoom in here, we can see that, okay, they're doing a minor rehab, they're doing an intersection improvement, along with some more roadway minor rehab in this area as well. So someone has already found and planned that we're going to do work on this in the next 4 years to bring that PCR score back up. And not just project data, but you can bring in any other data and compare it from TIMS that's already there with what you've exported into the situation. So maybe another interesting thing you can do is you can look at data over time. Let's see how the PCR has performed over time. So we'll go ahead and take this back a little bit further in here. And as this chart updates itself, you can see if we wanted to find a segment, so we'll take this segment right here, that this PCR has dropped 80, 79, continues to drop over years until the point where we're at 2016 in the data, and it's showing 58. So at some point, probably in the near future, that route's probably going to get a project on it to bring that score back up to making sure that it's within a good range. Now I'm going to change the filters here so I can make sure I can show one thing. So let's take a look at Interstate 71 on the south end of Franklin County, where there's been issues with the pavement, situations like that have happened, and they're continuing to work on it. So we'll update the segments here. And let's take a look at this segment here. So as you can see, when we start out in 2006 here, and then going forward, it's dropping. Well, in 2006, it looks like we had some form of project done that brought it back up. And as we look, 2000, we're at basically brand new, and then it drops rather quickly into 2005. So what's going on with that? Well, we can take a look at this and use a drill through, and we can plot this data on a graph and see what's going on. now that we have it plotted, we can see here, we've had some sort of drop happen. And then right here in 2005, 2006 time, 2007, we have a large jump. To me, that indicates that there is some sort of project that happened at that time to bring that score back up. Now, if you wanted to, you could hover over this. And it should provide some information about some PID that happened in that. So in this case, we can see that there's 2 projects over this time that's taken place on this route. Now, what exactly, we still have to do a little more work to make sure we can link into those PIDs. But this at least gives you an idea that you can then go out and find the PID and figure out, okay, what project was done, what rehab was done, what maintenance as well. So now the other part of this that you can do is say you have an idea of potentially what maybe one of those distresses were that were affecting this route. We can add that distress and see how it's actually gone over time, how it's affecting it. So let's see, try. Okay, so in this case, this distress didn't really show a whole lot, but you can see that there's some sort of increase in this bit of cracking between these 2 years. So I'll try another one, see if maybe we can see it a little different here.
Try that joint reflective crack.
Yes. Okay, so now we can see better that we did this project, got this road back up to brand new. Within a year, we already dropped 7 points in our DDOT. And our DDOT value for that joint reflecting cracking is 2. And as this PCR decreases, we can see that this value is increasing pretty heavily. So this was a problem with this segment of roadway. Now, we did our project and did some other work that prevented it from coming back, but 2009, we start to see this come back and start to increase again as the PCR drops. And that's where you can see relationships about between how these different distresses are affecting the roadways and the PCR over time. So another interesting report to take a look at, especially for anyone dealing with costs, would be the maintenance cost history. So what this report allows you to do is take a segment of road or the county and say, all right, I want to see all the costs that happened for a set of years on this segment. So in this case, we'll look at just 2014 and 2019 on IR-71 here. And as we can see, we have some large pavement costs as would be expected. We're equaling hundreds of thousands of dollars in all those situations. Miscellaneous, your drainage, what signage, what vegetation work has we done? And now with this, we can also drill through on all these and see more information regarding them. So if we wanted to, let's take a look at the drainage. We'll drill through on this. Now doing our drill through, what we found is that we have all of these different maintenance projects that happened based off of this one segment of roadway here. And that's how we can see this maintenance history. And then also, hang on, sorry, I've gotten into the wrong report somehow. So now that this has come up, we can see that, okay, on Interstate 71, we've had all these different maintenance activities, from weed control to clearing, grubbing, spraying herbicides, and where these locations took place, and then the activity code that went along with them, as well as the different costs for each of those activities. So in this case, we can see the labor costs, the material costs, and the equipment costs that went to doing just these activities for each one. Now, not just only can you look at just one maintenance activity, but let's say you just wanted to know, okay, what was all the money that we spent and what did we do on a segment of roadway for 1 year? We can select 1 year in the graph and we can drill through on it, and this way it'll only show us stuff related to that 1 year of what we did. So in this case, we can see that we have a lot of pavement activities that have been done over the time. As we were to scroll through here, you can see the different activity names. So they're patching pavement and those costs associated with it as well. And we have a miscellaneous of street sweeping that was performed. And as we go through, you would see what other pavement and other options we've done as far as maintenance and maintenance activities in this case. So one of the last main reports that we like to use is called the scoping report. So what scoping does is this allows you to take a road or a corridor and take a look at it and see, okay, what's it look like over time? What potential projects or activities do we have planned? And then what else is within the area that maybe, hey, let's take a look at it. Maybe we can fix a culvert that's going deficient out there while we're doing the pavement at the same time. So in this case, we have this first segment of route here. We can see that we've got a PCR 74. It's going to drop down to a 72. But let's take a look and see, okay, what else do we have here? And just looking at this bridges and culverts right away, we can see that we've got a culvert that's at a 4 in that segment. So if we're going to go out there and do any work, we should plan that we should do something with that culvert at the same time. Instead of shutting down the roadway, doing one bit of work, reopening it, then going back out, shutting it down, and doing another segment of work. And along with that, it also tells us over here, we have projects planned in this area already. So if we look at it, in 2021, we're looking to do major rehab already for a 5-mile segment here. So in that same time, we should plan that, hey, we have other assets that we can look at. And what else work-wise can we do while we're already doing that and we're already out there? We've already put people there and spending the money for it. Now, as well as that, we can also see the past activities that have happened in that area here as well. So in this case, different pavement maintenance, different vegetation maintenance, things like that. So, and I do want to say, be a little interactive here. So is there someone who wants to give me a road that you drive on every day, and let's take a look and see what that condition of that road is? Anyone?
670?
670?
Hey, actually drive.
Is that pre-construction?
Okay. So let's look at Interstate 670. So we'll kind of go through this a little bit real quick. So let's take a summary. Let's see what we have. This is kind of a work case that you can use this tool for. So we'll go ahead and put our bridge and culverts back on. So as this loads, we can already see here, we have 10 miles worth of pavement within 670, which I didn't know 670 was 10 miles long, so I just learned something new today. Now, obviously, that tells us what we have already in that area and what the size and the length of things are, but we don't know any other details besides that. So let's take a look at the conditions of what's on 670 here. All right, so we're looking at 670's pavement. Honestly, looks like it's pretty good. We're all sitting within an excellent rating, which I don't know about everyone else, but I know there's some areas of 670 that aren't pretty good, and some others aren't the best, but it's what it is. So let's take a look at the pavement, and we'll vary into the details on the pavement here. All right, so if we look at 670 here, we can see over time, especially at the beginning of 670 and 2000, we were really deficient. We're in the 43. That's pretty not the greatest place to be. But we can see that 2002, we jumped right back up to 100. So some sort of project was done to bring that score back up. As we look at time, we can go through this and see, okay, honestly, that beginning section of 670 does pretty well. And it's still going well. But if we look lower, we can see here that this little small segment here, and the reason we have this small segment comes back to that dynamic segmentation issue of there's some sort of attribute changing at that point, and that's why we get a small segment. But we can see that, okay, the pavement's good, but something happens. We have some sort of defect that's going on that's really kind of killing the pavement, that segment there. So let's go ahead and we'll drill through on this and let's take a look at what the plot says. So, did some project, things went well, still going well, but we can see that we have a distress coming in that's causing that PCR to drop. Probably along with other distresses, but we have one selected, so that's why it shows on that one. Now, if we wanted to look further into some stuff, let's say we want to find where all those poor spots are again. Let's go back to our poor condition list. We've already got it set to 60, so let's see what happens here when this comes up. Didn't find anything that was below a 60 on 670 right now. So if we want to, we'll just jump this back up to 70 and see what happens. And once again, still nothing. So right now, 670 is actually doing well based off the data that we can see. Now, as we've gone through that, well, maybe there's something planned in the future that we have. But let's see what we have. If we have anything planned to go on at 670. So if we look at here, we can take project years. So next thing that's really, as we go through this, there's not much really scheduled. But if we look at it, we can see that 2025, we're already planning for preventative maintenance. So based off our modeling, we've seen that that's the year we're going to probably have to do something to make sure that we keep that PCR score and the quality of the road up to a good standard for people to drive on it. So. And that's really what I have. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to take and answer what I can. Yes?
On the poor condition report, is that now? Or can you say, well, look, I want to know why we did this project in 2005 or how we allocated our money? Can you do that, or is that?
Yeah, you would have to go back and look into the project history. There's some other reports I didn't highlight, but that would be one that would give you that opportunity to go back and see where those projects were done and why, just whether there's a score issue or something like that that caused it.
Also, to add to that question that you have, there's some reports that are coming. This is phase 1 that's out there now. Phase 2 is coming. In phase 2, you'll be able to look to see what was the prior to condition before the project happened. So that should aid the forensics portions of it. As you know right now, and as you saw that one graphic you had up there on I-71, it used to be we did a lot of seat of the pants type analysis, for lack of a better word. That highlights that. Because now if I know the beginning condition and I know what I did, I can see the results, the return on investment in terms of did it last long. On that one particular project he showed you up there, we got 6 years out of a multi-million-dollar project. That's not a good return on investment. We would expect to get somewhere between 12 and 14 years. So you'll be able to use this tool to identify, are we picking good treatments or are we not? And then you'll be able to do it by district also.
Yes.
The section there you had on like maintenance costs,
Yes.
where is that pulling that data from?
That pulls from, Drew, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Ellis in the project history itself.
The maintenance data is coming from EIMS.
EIMS.
And TMS.
Yeah, and what we did was
And what else?
TMS.
We
We've
pulled
been
all
about
the
20 years.
We pull all the TMS data over, crosswalked it over to EIMS to try to match the codes. If we couldn't find a matching code, we just left it what the TMS code was, okay? So you got a mixture of TMS and EIMS. The data is only as good as what your folks put in it. That's the disclaimer, okay? It's not a tech services issue. It is, if you don't put it in right, it's gonna look the way it looks. But it's an amazing way to go look at the accomplishments, your labor, material, equipment. What was the level of effort for doing pothole patching or any other activity? You can get all of that.
How detailed does it get? Does it get down to even like a line item on a piece of material? Or is it just an overall cost that you see?
It's an overall cost in terms of what you see right here. What we did was we left that up to the HMAs. You tell us what you want to see, recreate the reports that they were getting out of EIMS. This is a platform that will allow you to do it. If they wanted to get more granular, this can be expanded out to include whatever data is available. So this is an awesome platform to be able to do this in.
Any other questions?
Is this, everybody can access MBSC, or is this?
Yes, you can get to it from the internet page.
Who are the consumers of this data on a daily basis?
Say again?
Who are the consumers of this data on a daily basis?
The consumers would be planners and engineers within the department. People are looking to plan projects out, look at what treatments really are effective, and where's the best place to put money to get the best return of investment.
And I would say everybody. Everybody. If I was Director Marchbanks, and let's say somebody said, how much money have you spent on the interstate system over the last 5 years? Because we feel like you haven't made enough investment. We could do that. What would it cost me to actually replace a certain stretch of roadway, including all the assets? You can do that. So there's something in it for almost everybody. You know, finance, there's some things that's in it for them. So I would say everybody. Everybody has access within DOT.
What's planned for phase 2?
So the plan for phase 2 that we're going to be deploying here within the next month or so, we're going to be adding several new assets. We're going to be adding barriers, BMPs, and overhead sign supports, and also several new reports. We're going to be adding gap projects. We're going to be adding some performance reports, and then that condition history grid I showed you is going to be updated to not just show pavement condition data, but that'll also have traffic data as well as roadway inventory data that you can align and see that as it's changed over the years as well.
The one graph we saw, it showed where there were projects done.
Yes.
Does that also account for maintenance projects that are done? Like something that was spooled out of a maintenance garage type of thing?
Yeah, you could select and vary down into just that maintenance data from that maintenance cost history report and export that onto the map and take a look at it.
And then there's also one report that would give you both capital and maintenance together.
Yeah, and
So you-
that's where my thought process goes, because we put a lot of different emphasis on capital projects versus maintenance projects, operating budget versus capital budget. And, you know, we try to focus our energies into that capital budget. Well, how much are we expending in maintenance to do improvements, and are those improvements actually giving us a benefit?
Yes, you get all that right here.
Question on the, like on weeding in the maps, I work on the environment system, and does it show, or would it be behoove you to have environmental areas that are around, like if you're spraying vegetation, putting herbicide, letting people know that it's going to affect, you know, environmentally sensitive areas?
Yeah, you know, it's something that we're always looking to take suggestions and things like that to improve and add more data to it, and that's something that we could do in the future.
We have layers and TIMs that we developed with environmental services that illustrate environmentally sensitive areas. They are outdated, however. We've been waiting for OES to say, here's some new input for these layers. But if you're not familiar with them, I can show you how to get that.
Okay.
But what that would give you the ability to do, though, if you run a query over here, then you dump it over into Tim's, which is what he showed you.
Yeah.
You turn those layers on, and you can interact the two together.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Garrison, there's one last thing I do want to highlight.
Yes.
Remember the scoping report that Garrison did? We sat with an engineer, actually a few engineers. In order to be able to do that scoping report, you're talking about almost, I think, 14 different data sets. It would take 14 different individual data sets to do what he did with one click of a button. 14. And on average, it would take you about 10 to 11 days to assemble the data. So what was taking 10 or 11 days, you got a click of a button. This is where transportation is going in terms of being able to leverage the analytics and being able to get these kind of reports out. So in the future, what we would expect to see is that I'm going to design a project. I should be able to input the issues with the pavement, and it come back with some possible solutions based off of historical trends of things that have worked. That's the direction that we're going with transportation. It's a very exciting direction, but this is the power of the analytics, and we're just starting.
And this tool is an extremely powerful consumer of data. You know, you're looking through 1 billion records. You know, this is not something small. It's pushing limits of this software.
So how many different systems, you know, you mentioned, 14 different data sets. How many other IT systems or general systems are we pulling the data from?
We're pulling stuff from traffic, roadway inventory, the pavement side from PCR ratings. We're pulling in the bridge files, culvert files, project history stuff. We're using PWeb, EIMS, other project histories, and also maintenance stuff.
So all these systems, from what Ian was mentioning about the data governance,
Yes.
that comes into a very sharp focus here if we're relying on this data without questioning it, right?
Yes.
So all those other systems need to make sure that the content is proper.
Right, and the data is only as good as what we have available.
What we're reflecting here, yeah.
Yes?
I was gonna make a comment. I think one of the values of this tool that you didn't mention was that when you bump these data sets up against one another, then you identify problems with data governance, actually, that, boy, wouldn't it be great if everybody used the same way to classify this piece of data so that these data sets would interact better with one another, so that we've surfaced all kinds of different issues with this tool regarding like data governance issues and data inconsistencies. And I think that's a huge value for us.
Yes, very much so. Yes?
Speaking of which, how good is your integration with as-built or the site manager data?
Drew, do you have a?
Not great. What you see with the quote PWEB data, that's the historical project data, that is tied to site management. So for example, when we put projects into PWEB, it goes out to site manager, it pulls in things like repair quantities. For those of you who are construction people, items 253, 255, and 252. It pulls those items in and populates them in PWEB. So it is as close to as-built as we can possibly get. However, we do have that on the radar to try to actually get as-built, but it's going to take us a while. So that's about as close as we're getting right now, but in the project history, it's pretty close. So if you look for the historical projects and do what he called a drill through, there is a project history component that you can click on. That information is coming, a lot of that information is coming from site manager. So we figured some of it out, but it's not easy because of the governance piece.
And so connecting those costs to the actual assets, I mean, I've dealt with this data. I think that's very difficult to do at this point.
It is. It is. And the other thing that it highlights too is a governance issue again. Site managers and AstroWare. The AstroWare products were not designed to do what we do as a state. It was designed for global, United States use. And so what we're trying to do is take almost like a COTS solution and compare it and utilize it with something that was developed for Ohio. And one of the things that we're doing, we're pushing ASTO to try to give us a little bit more flexibility in these applications to allow us to be able to do the kind of work we know we need to do. So getting those repair quantities exactly where those repairs are actually happening on the roadway, as opposed to us having to do some estimates off of it. But it's on the radar. It's going to take us a while, and but I think we're going in the right direction.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate your time.